Well, we're coming back at you here, and oil is just ripping. So we tore right through uh, this zone here I've had for quite a while. This was a selling zone that I had for oil. Now, I'm not trading the commodity here through the futures market. I'm playing it through XLE, gasoline, oil companies. These are kind of my way of playing it. Although, if you're in the futures market with oil, I think there's definitely room to run. You'll probably end up making more money on the trade overall than you would on something like XLE, because again, the price of oil will outpace the actual value of the stocks of these companies who are selling gasoline, like a Chevron type of company, right? So there's probably a better trade overall there. But again, I like the dividends, so I just hold on to those long term. But I might have to change that here pretty soon with the way this is going. But clearly, we broke right past this old resistance zone. Now, again, this is a whole different type of situation. There is a potential massive war. So, I mean, this is going to be very hard to gauge. But you know what I was thinking? Actually, what about this? If we look back at 2008, that whole crisis here, let me just draw a line a little bit more. Okay. If we look at this run here, I started noticing I'm not going to go from this point because I feel like this down here is a little unrealistic. I mean, the whole world shut down, right? So oil fell completely through the floor. Nobody was really buying it down at this point, right? In the futures market, it never really. I mean, maybe somebody did, but that price just got bid right back up. It's not like someone made out with a ton of oil at $0, right? Anyway, if we use this as a more realistic level, you see we've basically have had the run from, let's call it 2007 of January until June 2008. So a year and a half run we've done since October of 2020 into March 2022. So it's not, that crazy, right? But the majority of that run has been at this point. And that's typically what happens when you have a blow off top. Now, this would have been more realistic where we saw this happening. We knew, okay, this is getting a little carried away. At some point, this thing has to go. We didn't have anything else to go by back at this point. We can see back in 1990, we were obviously way above that. We can see some other points here, right? So most people were probably selling out around this point thinking, whew, I made all kinds of money. This is great. Sold off and then took off. That's usually you have your last run is where you get that incredible blow off top. Now, in this situation, we don't really know how high this is going to go because you have inflation as a problem worldwide, really, right? You'll hear these politicians talking about how companies are just price gouging people. You know, that's not what's happening, right? This is all around the world. Prices are rising because all these governments are printing so much money or creating it out of thin air. They actually do it through reserves in the federal. Well, they're not even federal. They're the Federal Reserve, right? It's a private company, but it's just named federal. It's like Federal Express. But anyway, they create these reserves for banks, and as those banks loan it out, that's where the money is really created. Or even when you use your credit card, you're creating this money out of thin air, right? So this inflation's all around the world. So it's not what these politicians are saying about price gouging. That's just ridiculous talk, trying to buy some votes or something. But anyway, what I would be looking at here is I see my 150 mark here. I've been waiting on this for quite some time, but I think we're probably going to blow through that. I don't know that we'll receive much resistance, but you have to start wondering about the company side of this. Like, let's open up, let me pull back up XLE here. You have to start wondering about a company that sells gasoline or oil because you would think, oh, look, oil's going to the moon. Let me buy these companies. And yes, there's a great play there. That's the play I've been doing. But of course, oil, the commodity, again, is going to outperform the actual companies who have to sell this gasoline, right? So that's why I'm saying in the futures market for oil, there's probably a better trade on that side of it to sell the commodity. You get this higher percentage gain. But here's what you have to consider with the company side. Not only that oil could start to sell off, and then this is going to sell off with it. You never quite got the massive gain you may be expecting, but eventually, typically when you have oil get to these peaks, you have recessions. So it's highly likely we're going into a recession regardless of this oil situation as the Fed's tightening, raising interest rates. We'll see if they turn around. They may turn around depending on what happens to the stock market. I'll do another video on the S&P 500. But just looking at this, we're at a point where we're starting to get to a typical resistance level. Although this isn't a typical time, it's going to be very hard to gauge. Typically, I might be taking a little bit of profit in this zone, maybe like 5% of my holdings, and I'm just going to watch it. And when we get up closer to this point here, I might take another 5%, and up here, maybe another 5%, depending on what's happening in the market. And if we blow through this, I expect there to be some sort of sell-off in a typical market. But I don't exactly know. I mean, typically, you don't know what's going to happen anyway, but there's not really much you can go by from a technical standpoint. You kind of have to mix that with fundamentals and what's happening. But this is what I would think, that as oil starts to explode higher and higher and higher, besides the government getting involved and smashing oil prices down or putting subsidies into the market or whatever there might be, companies are going to start to lose customers, right? You got to think about this too. With COVID, a lot of people started working from home, so they don't have to drive as much if they didn't want to. So I think that's going to affect the profits from these types of companies who would sell that gasoline. So short term, yeah, you might see oil just ripping like this, and then the companies have to sell and sell and look, they're making more profit, making more profit. But the problem is oil comes crashing back down, and what does the market think, right? They haven't technically made these profits yet. The market's just buying these companies, assuming they're going to make profits because of this. But then all of a sudden, this just starts to sell off, right? Because the expectation's gone. When this starts to come down, it's, we missed it. We're not going to make any more off of this. So I don't know. I mean, oil is outpacing this so fast right now that I'm looking at starting to take some money off the table somewhere into between these 2 points here. So somewhere around this probably 85 to 90 level, just a little bit of money off the table. We've done really well on it anyway from, down in this zone. So it's been great. We've been collecting dividends. So this is great. But I think what's going to end up happening here is let me get these out of the way. This is going to continue to rise at a dramatic pace. We can see it blew through this ascending pattern here, right? Blew through, which typically you would think, oh, hey, we're on to a new trend, right? But I think we're probably going to end up selling off somewhere in this zone to come back to this trend. This would be the real trend line I'm looking for anyway. But you can see things like this explode higher and then come back down and eventually meet that trend line. What I want to be doing is selling a little here, selling a little here, selling a little here. If we blow through this top, maybe I take a 20% chunk off and continue to ride this up, and you never know. So I might keep 25% or 30% on the table and continue to ride this up, because what if it does keep going, right? But if it sells back off really hard and comes back down to this trend line, I might start buying and dump it all back in, because I'm still in this play for the long haul, right? This is probably 8-year, 6-year or so play for me. I think this is going to continue to go up. So I could just leave it in this whole time, but I think there's opportunity in these areas where if I can sell out before and it falls back down to this zone, well, then you get to accumulate more than you had, right? So that's kind of the game plan there. But let's go back to oil real quick. Look at the commodity side of it. I mean, this is just bonkers. This is a weekly chart right here. But look at this gain. I mean, literally, we blew right through like exactly my little pattern here. Let's see. Let's measure this out. I mean, that already was a 20, 26, 25% zone. I was thinking, oh, this would be a great area to be selling if we get there. It just blew up, right? So I don't think that's going to continue for much longer. Either government's going to step in when we break these into new highs. It's going to look bad on the elections that are coming, right? At least in the United States, where I'm at. You have Senate races this year, congressmen trying to buy their votes, and it doesn't look very good when your constituents are paying really high gas prices. So one side's going to be using this against the other. So I'm curious to see what happens here, although this is a worldwide thing. I mean, you can't really control it, right? You'd need a lot of places pumping oil at the same time to bring this down, or they open the pipeline here in the United States, which I don't know if that's going to happen at this point. So I'm just watching. I want to be pulling profits at some point, just along the way, and I'll stick it maybe in my Celsius account in crypto and just collect interest on US dollar coin. Maybe you swap that out for something else that has performed poorly. I expect the S&P 500 to continue going down, but you can play it. Maybe you put it in something like TLT, and this might be a good play where now typically I wouldn't be putting it in here. I don't like this play for kind of the times we're in right now, but I might be willing to sell some of that out and start piling in here, because as the S&P 500 gets a little nuts, things start to sell off. You might see this continue to go up, and I'm watching for XLE to fall back down to my trend line. Then I'll sell out, make some money here, and then I can roll back into XLE, right? So if I'm selling some of this on the way up, and I might only get 25 or 30% out, right? I may miss out on profits up here because you never know when it's going to peak. But the point is, if I get 25% out on the way up and I'm rolling that into something like TLT, and then that continues to go up a little bit slower, but it continues to go up. When this sells off, I've still been making money on that 25%, and I could drop back in and try to buy these heavy dips that we see in XLE and continue riding it up. Just a way to make some money in the meantime as I'm cashing out. I don't want the cash just sitting there doing nothing, right? But I'm really not a fan of those bonds in the United States anymore. I think we're going to face some real trials here. You can see what's happening to Russia, and I think China is going to follow them here pretty soon, at least financially. They don't want to hold our U.S. treasuries, right? So anyway, that's all I got for now. And I don't know where you're watching this from. You may be watching it on TradingView. You may be on another platform. Again, I can't share other social medias on here. Otherwise, they kill this video. So make sure you like and comment. I know a lot of people were talking about the last video on TradingView. And have some discussions. Am I wrong? Am I right? Does it sound realistic to you guys? Let me know. And if you're watching it somewhere else, watch an ad. I mean, I don't get any money from it or anything right now, but just watch an ad. You support other YouTubers out there, and probably can't use that word on here, but whether it's other platforms, watch ads. I mean, people are putting free content out there for you. So watch an ad and see if you can't help someone out who's giving you their thoughts out there. Anyway, I got to go. Have a good one.